This is a step-by-step guide aimed at advanced knitters. You will need some knowledge of casting on and be comfortable knitting and purling in the round. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you never miss a stitch. I'm Maria May from the Casting On Couch, and I can't wait to show you these. So let's begin. If you are a beginner knitter, I have a beginner's guide to this project where the rounds are shown in full. It's a thorough stitch-by-stitch guide. Please make a note of the materials that you'll be needing for this project.
For this project, you'll need a typical double knitting yarn. This is Rowan Softiac Double Knit, 00245 is the shade. And what you want to do is, for results similar to mine, you want to marry the ball band tension and look out for a yarn that uses a 4mm needle.
With 4mm double pointed needles, cast on 36 stitches. Divide the work so that needle 1 has 18 stitches and needles 2 and 3 have 9. Next, create a ribbed band by working a knit 1 purl 1 rib for 12 rounds.
Once you have 12 rounds of rib stitch pattern, we can do the increase round and prepare for the lace bobble pattern. I'm going to call this setting up increase round, round A. And what I want you to do first of all is begin this round by knitting 6. So that's 1, 2, 5, 6. Next we're going to increase whilst making a bobble. With your right needle tip, enter into the strand in between your 2 stitches, like so, and use the tip to slip it onto the left needle, and at the same time then go slightly into the front so that you can come back out again and enter from front to back, like so. Now we're going to make a little cluster of increases. We're going to begin by knitting 1 without taking the stitch away from the left needle. Bring the yarn to the front, yarn forward, sometimes called yarn over. Enter into the same stitch, knit 1, and note I'm keeping this quite reasonably loose. I'm not pulling tightly here. In fact, I'm kind of pulling so that I can release the stitch. Bring to the front, yarn forward, and again knit 1 stitch. Check you have a little cluster of 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then release your stitch from the left needle. Now turn the work we are going to purl these 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Turn the work, and we are now going to form a decrease. So those first 2 stitches, enter into both of them knitwise, knit 2 together, knit the remaining 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3. Turn the work again, and this time I want you to purl 2 together and then purl 2. So that's purl 2 together and purl 2. And turn the work. This time enter knitwise into all 3 stitches. Knit 3 together. And your little bobble is formed. Let's encourage it to come foremost, uppermost. And to make it even perkier, what I do is I wrap the yarn around the base of the bobble. So what I mean by that is I kind of go under it, around and back again, like so, and then I bring the yarn to the back. And this makes my bobbles very, very perky. So a little bobble tip for you there. To finish the repeat, knit 3. 1, 2, 3. And you would continue this repeat pattern that I've shown you throughout the entire round. Now before we continue, I want you to check that you have a total of 40 stitches. So needle 1 should have 20 and needles 2 and 3 should have 10 stitches. Now we can move on to the main lace bobble pattern. So this consists of 8 rounds which you will repeat. I want you to knit this round, and then when we get to the very last stitch I want you to slip it onto needle 1. So this is very important. This last stitch we have here, slip it onto needle 1. If you don't do so, this pattern will not work for you. So that's round 1 completed. Now we can start round 2. And this is the repeat. We're going to begin by knitting 2 together. And then yarn forward, or if you call it yarn over. Then knit 1, yarn forward, and then I'm going to slip 1 and then knit 1, and then I'm going to pass the slip stitch over, and then I'm going to knit 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that sequence there is the main pattern, and I want you to keep repeating it. And I want you to slip the last stitch over onto needle 2. On needle 3 there'll be no stitches left over. Now round 3, it's the same as round 1, so knit the round, and the very last stitch you need to slip onto needle 1. Round 4, we're going to begin by knitting 2 together, and then yarn forward or yarn over, knit 3, 1, 2, 3, yarn forward or yarn over, slip 1, knit 1, and pass the slip stitch over and knit 3, 1, 2, 3. And I want you to repeat that sequence throughout, but we will have some stitches on this round to slip in order to maintain the flow of the pattern. So for round 5, it's the same as round 1, so remember to slip that very last stitch over and onto needle 1, ready to work in with the next round. So that's round 5 completed. Round 6. So begin by knitting 2 together, and then yarn forward and knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yarn forward, slip 1, knit 1, and pass the slip stitch over, and knit 1, and repeat that sequence throughout. That was round 6. Next it's a knit round. This is round 7, but I really need you to pay attention here because we want to slip the last 2 stitches for round 7. So round 7, we just continue knitting. So I'm at the end of the round. How many stitches left? 4 stitches. I want to leave 2 at the end. So these 2 stitches from needle 3 are going to be placed onto needle 1. We need both of them to form the next round. So now for round 8, we begin round 8 with a yarn forward and knit 3 together. So it's very important that you have the yarn placed in the front of the work and under the working needle in readiness. So I'm going to position my right needle into those 3 stitches so that we can knit 3 together, but before I complete that action I'm making sure my yarn is in fact under the working needle. So that means I can create a yarn forward and I can bring it around and form my knit 3 together at the same time, like so. So that's what you have to remember when your yarn forward is at the beginning of a double pointed needle basically. So we've got yarn forward, knit 3 together, yarn forward again, and this time I want you to knit 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to make a bobble into the next stitch. So no strand this time. The main pattern, what you do is you enter into the stitch, and this will be familiar to you because you do the same thing, same action, knitting 1, bringing the yarn to the front, keeping it loose, knitting again without taking it from the left needle, yarn forward and knit 1. So from our next stitch, from 1 we've created 5. So now we've done that, we can turn the work and we're going to purl those 5 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And now that you've purled 5, turn the work again, and this time we're going to knit 2 together, and then we're going to knit 3, 1, 2, 3. Turn the work, and remember we purled 2 together, and then we purl 2. And turn the work again, and then knit 3 together. Try that again. I feel like my stitches are slipping off. They are. Ooh, that's no good, is it? Let's place that back on. So, I think I've caught them all that time. So knit 3 together, and I'm bringing the yarn around to make my bobble nice and perky. I'm just wrapping it underneath the bobble and pulling it tight so that I get a sort of bobble shape that I'm happy with. There we go. Now, continuing on with round 8, we want to finish the repeat by knitting 3. 1, 2, 3. And we want to repeat that sequence again, and this time for needle 1 we'll have 2 stitches remaining which we'll need to slip. So that's round 8, and those 8 rounds form the main pattern, and all we have to do is repeat that sequence for this lovely lace bobble stitch to emerge. Repeat rounds 1 to 8 3 further times to build up this beautiful lace pattern, and then I want you to repeat rounds 1 to 4. For round 5 you'll be needing a stitch holder, as we will be reserving stitches for the thumb on this round. So what I want you to do is slip 7 stitches onto your stitch holder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the first 7 stitches there from needle 1, place onto a stitch holder. Now if you place your working needle for a moment against needle 3, we're going to create 7 stitches onto the working needle. So all I'm doing is grasping the yarn in my left hand and wrapping it around the thumb, and then I'm simply going to place that first stitch like so onto my working needle. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the first stitch I kind of did quite tightly, and then thereafter these stitches I kind of kept relatively loose so that on the following round I'll be able to work into them a bit easier. So what we now need to do is bring up needle 1 and simply continue the round, and remember at the end of round 5 we need to slip that very last stitch over and onto needle 1, and then that will complete round 5. So work rounds, continue with round 6, work round 7 and then round 8, and after that I want you to do one further set of the repeat, so rounds 1 to 8 after that. Once you have completed rounds 1 to 8, I want you to work one final knit round. So I've just completed that knit round, and notice I haven't slipped any stitches over onto needle 1. Next, we are going to prepare for the fingers by increasing the hand section. So I'm going to call this round A, and what I want you to do is knit one and then yarn forward or yarn over, knit one and yarn forward, and then I want you to knit 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I want you to repeat that sequence throughout the round. So round B, we are going to knit one, and then every time we see a yarn forward, we're going to work into the back of that. So you want to, sometimes I go through the front to open it up a bit, but the aim is to go through the back of the stitch there from the previous yarn forward, and then to work through the back of it. So that's knit one and then knit one through back loop, and we want to repeat that again, knit one and then knit one through the back loop, and this prevents an eyelet from forming, which is what we want. Next, knit 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we're going to continue with that sequence throughout. Before we carry on to create the individual fingers, just do a quick stitch count. You want to make sure you've got a total of 48 stitches. There will be 24 stitches on needle 1 and 12 stitches on needles 2 and 3. Now I'd like you to get a circular needle and a little marker, something like this will come in useful. I want you to mark the centre of the thumb opening directly above it. So if I show you what I mean by that, if you place a marker on the 15th stitch on needle 1, you will find the centre point that I'm referring to. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. So that's the centre point of the thumb opening, and 14 stitches to the right create the right index finger, the right glove, and 14 stitches to the left will create the index finger for the left glove. So in this video I'm going to be demonstrating the right glove. So first of all, what I suggest is slipping all the stitches from needles 2 and 3 onto a circular needles to free up some double pointed needles for creating the index fingers. So we don't need these stitches for the time being, so they're better off on a circular needle for holding. And we want the first 14 stitches, so that means I can slip the stitches up to the marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that should leave me with 14. Yeah, that's correct. I've got 14 stitches. Look, that's perfect. Now grab yourself a fresh double pointed needle and slip 7 stitches onto it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now if we close that, we now need a third double pointed needle. We need to find our yarn, And what we're going to do is simply work small rounds for the index finger. Now, it just so happens that for the first row, we just work across. So I'm going to call this needle A. Let's work across the first 7 stitches knitwise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we'll work needle B, and when we get to the end of this needle we can then close the round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now close those together. And round 2 will secure the round. So now for round 2, 1, pulling that tightly there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's needle A. Just going to turn it so I can work needle B. And then I just tend to pull a bit tighter at the junction of needles so that I don't get a laddering effect. And so we're already nearly finished with round 2. Now I have my 8 rounds. I'm going to cast off knitwise. I align the finished cast off edge by going into the first stitches that I cast off. I've gone underneath rather in a sort of crochet like fashion, and I'm just going to pull through a stitch and cast that off. This helps a little with the darning in at the end. It gives it a nice finish to the top. Right, so now we've got our index finger, we can create our middle finger next. And if you note that the middle and the ring finger are made in exactly the same way, so we don't need this marker anymore, so we can get rid of that. Now I want you to slip 6 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from each end of the circular needle holder. So I've got 1 in position, so bring up from the opposite side, 5, 6. So again we'll call these needles needle A and needle B. And so we've got 2 lots of 6 stitches ready. Before we work those, we need to collect 2 stitches at the base of the previous finger. So we need to find a suitable space in which to find a little bar that we can pick up. So I'm going to rejoin my yarn here and see how that looks. And then over onto the opposite side, I'll try and find another suitable stitch in which I can collect another stitch. So I do tend to like the sort of bars that I can see, the horizontal bars. Let's go in there because we can always undo it if it looks holy. And once we've got those 2 stitches, we need to sort out, make sure that our stitches on our 2 needles are not twisted, and then we can work across our first needle. Let's call this needle A. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got 6 stitches plus the 2 that we've collected, so that's 8. And then to complete the first round, we're going to work these 6 stitches here. I'm going to bring those 2 needles in together so that I can tighten at the junction of the 2 needles there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's our first round. And I'm going to continue for a total of 8 rounds and then cast off. So I've got another 7 rounds to go. Create the ring finger in exactly the same way as the middle finger. Now for the baby finger. Divide the 10 remaining stitches over 2 double-pointed needles. For the baby finger we have a total of 12 stitches after picking up at the base of the previous finger. So work those 12 stitches for a total of 8 rounds and then cast off. Now let's create the thumb. We are going to pick up a total of 9 stitches over this opening here, beginning at this point. So we need to rejoin the yarn. So I'm looking for a nice horizontal bar. I quite like the look of that stitch, so I'm going to go and collect that one there and rejoin my yarn. And so that's my first stitch. And as this feels a little bit lumpy just here, I'm going to bypass that and go into this stitch to form what will be an eyelet. Can you see it will be in keeping with the pattern, so I don't mind that. So that's my second. And then along this edge where we cast on earlier on, I'm going to select these nice horizontal bars here. Let's do that again. I haven't quite caught that. So in there, that will be 3. So I'm aiming for 9. There's another one. That's 4. 5. Now, which one shall I go for? Let's go here. Six. And now I'm going to go into this strand here where I'll form another eyelet on the opposite side. 7. So 2 more stitches to go. Let's see what that looks like. So we now should have 9, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So now we want to slip the stitches that were previously on the holder, as we should have 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So check you've got 7. And we are going to just carry on working all these stitches that were previously on the holder. I'm going to pull that junction tightly. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have now, over needles A and B here, we've got a total of 16 stitches, and again we want to work a total of 8 rounds. So what I'd like you to do is carry on, and then when you have 8 rounds you can cast off the thumb.